Welcome to this explainer. We're going to jump right in today and go way back in time to unpack a seriously fascinating piece of history. So I want you to picture this in your mind. It's 1445 AD, middle of medieval France. You've got these freezing cold winds sweeping through the cobblestone alleys of a completely quiet village. And up in this tiny, cramped, timber-framed garret, there's a man named Pierre Lebeau. He's 33 years old. And the candlelight in his room isn't just flickering, it's practically dancing to the rhythm of a mind that is just entirely possessed. I mean, Pierre hasn't slept in months. He's completely exhausted. His eyes are all hollowed out, but his mind is absolutely ablaze.
You see Pierre as being stalked by this recurring, haunting dream. Literally, every single night he closes his eyes and gets violently pulled into this vast, obsidian void. And waiting for him in that darkness is a shadowy figure. Now, the sources we have describe this thing as neither an angel nor a demon, but something incredibly ancient. And what's it holding in its hands? A standard deck of playing cards. The figure's voice would just boom like thunder through the mountains, delivering this exact wild revelation. The universe is not chaotic, Pierre. It is a grand tapestry woven in symbols. The fate of humankind is written in these slips of parchment, if only you have the eyes to see.
Section 1. The Midnight Vision. So, when Pierre finally wakes up from this intense dream, his whole world is fundamentally shifted. He realizes that the common deck of playing cards was just completely incomplete.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this comparison is absolutely crucial. The ordinary pip cards of the day, the ones used by soldiers, merchants, tavern keepers, they suddenly looked entirely different to him. Pierre saw the standard playing cards of his time as a broken mirror. Like, sure, they were a fun game, but they were only reflecting half of the human soul. They completely lacked the actual depth of the human experience. So Pierre has this massive epiphany. To capture human destiny in its entirety, to capture the all, as we call it, required something truly monumental. He realized it needed the addition of 22 greater secrets.
Section 2. Gathering the Four. Building the team. Because let's be real, a vision that massive would absolutely consume a solitary mind. Pierre knew for sure he couldn't do this alone. He needed a team to keep himself from plunging into total madness and to actually spark the revolution he saw in his head.
Let's look at this fascinating cast of characters that brought the vision to life. First up, obviously, we have Pierre, our visionary, but he confides these crazy dreams to his closest friend Marcel. And Marcel, he's the intellect and the ambition of the group. While Pierre was seeing cosmic truth, Marcel saw a literal revolution. He tells Pierre, "You're not just going to change how we play, you're going to change how we think." Then we have Annette. Annette was the love of Pierre's life, filled with this fierce devotion. She was his absolute anchor. Actually, she's the one who literally placed a charcoal stick in his hand, pushed him to paint the visions, and famously declared they'd call it Tarot, the royal road of life. And finally, Pierre's own hands just couldn't capture the terrifying majesty of his dreams. For that, they needed André. André was this eccentric rogue, a master of the forbidden and the beautiful. He was an artist whose brush was said to be dipped in both starlight and brimstone. When Pierre described those shadowy figures from his dream, André's eyes just lit up with this manic creative fire. For 3 intense years, this team of 4 just locked themselves away from the rest of the world. It was this crazy period of secretive, highly collaborative labor. André is in there painting the images onto fine vellum, actually incorporating real gold leaf that would catch the candlelight like trapped stars. Pierre is right over his shoulder, guiding every single brushstroke so it perfectly matches those midnight visions. Meanwhile, Annette is managing what little money they have left just to keep them from starving, and Marcel is quietly orchestrating this grand design of how they're going to drop this on the world.
Section 3. Architecture of Destiny. Their intense labor finally birthed an absolute masterpiece. Let's pause our narrative just for a second to really analyze the structural components of this newly created deck.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how brilliantly the deck is divided. The 78 keys of the tarot split into 2 vital slices, representing this perfect balance between the grand, sweeping cosmos and just our normal, everyday lives. So we've got the minor arcana, making up 56 cards, and the major arcana, making up 22. Let's break those down.
First, the 56 cards of the Minor Arcana. This entire segment of the deck was designed specifically to capture the ordinary, daily struggles of humanity. It features the 4 suits you probably recognize: swords, cups, pentacles, and wands. This is that grounded half of the broken mirror, the part of life we all have to navigate every single day.
But then, and this is the real game changer, we have the 22 cards of the Major Arcana. These are the 22 greater secrets Pierre realized were missing from the world. These cards serve as the cosmic, spiritual keys. They map out the grand archetypal journey of the soul, starting all the way from the sheer innocence of the fool and culminating in the absolute completion of the world. Put it all together, and the deck was basically a visual symphony.
Section 4. The Empire of Fate. This is where things culturally just explode.
And this brilliantly illustrates how word of this masterpiece spread like wildfire, completely shifting our story from a cold French garret to the beating heart of Renaissance Italy. Walk through this rapid timeline with me. We kick off with Pierre's vision in 1445, right? Followed by those 3 grueling years of secret labor. Then, this guy named Gabriel Suté steps in. Suté ran literally the most technologically advanced publishing house in Italy. He recognizes their absolute genius instantly, brings the 4 creators down to Italy, and uses cutting-edge woodblock printing, plus some highly secret ink formulas, to mass-produce the artwork. This becomes known as the Suté edition, and its massive printing in Milan and Rome led directly to rapid, royal adoption across the entire continent of Europe.
When those cards hit the streets of Milan and Rome, the response was a literal cultural earthquake. I mean, this wasn't just some passing trend. The tarot transcended class, it transcended language, and it smashed right through borders. You had the rich, the poor, the deeply pious, and the occultists all clutching these newly printed cards to their chests. Why? Because the deck answered those huge, terrifying, timeless questions of love, war, and mortality that literally every single human being faces.
To really give you an idea of the incredible success of Pierre and Marcel's expansion, just look at this ridiculous royal clientele. The gates of Pierre's newly purchased mansion in Rome were constantly jammed with royal carriages. The King of France is sending secret couriers to request readings before marching his armies into battle. The Holy Roman Emperor himself is seeking Pierre's counsel regarding the marriage of his daughters. Queens and dukes from Spain all the way to the Far East were just begging for customized hand-painted decks from André. And André, by the way, he's now living like an absolute prince in his own private wing of their massive estate. No way they saw that coming back in the garret.
So Pierre Lebeau goes from being this impoverished, completely sleep-deprived dreamer in a freezing French room to literally one of the most famous and wealthy men in Europe. He marries Annette in a breathtaking cathedral filled with white lilies, and they live in this sprawling marble palace overlooking Rome. But what I absolutely love about this story is that Pierre somehow remained remarkably humble through the whole shebang. The historical sources tell us that on beautiful, starry Roman nights, Pierre and Annette would stand out on their balcony looking over the Eternal City, and Pierre would hold a single card in his hand, the star. Looking at it, he knew for sure that the shadowy figure in his garret all those years ago had hit the nail on the head. The universal mirror of the human soul was, finally, whole.
The fate of humankind wasn't locked away in some distant, unbending stars. It was right there. It was accessible, held gently in the hands of anyone who actually dared to look. So, as we wrap up this explainer on the incredible birth of the tarot, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to really reflect on. If the fate of humankind is held gently in your hands, what will you draw next? Thank you so much for exploring this with me.